This is 260 million years ago. One continent. Temperatures at its heart reaching 60 degrees Celsius. The coasts survive. The interior is dust and rock and heat. Oxygen lower than today, CO2 higher, the climate lurching between monsoon and drought with nothing gentle in between. This wasn't a cradle of life. This was a pressure cooker. And here is what most people don't know. The animals dominating this world, the apex fauna of the entire Permian period, were not reptiles. They were synapsids, our lineage. Every mammal alive today, wolves, whales, elephants, humans, descends from this lineage. And in the Permian, this lineage won. It had been winning for over 100 million years. Synapsids were the dominant large animals on every continent. They had evolved the herbivores, the armor, the size, the numbers. And then they built the ultimate weapon. For 100 million years, our side of the family tree had conquered every ecological role on Earth. We were the kings, and Gorgonops was our greatest achievement. This animal didn't just dominate its world, it controlled what could exist in it. Gorgonops is hard to classify. It isn't a reptile. Not really. It isn't a mammal either. It exists in an evolutionary no-man's land, a therapsid, a member of the mammal line, but something that had taken that lineage and done something unprecedented with it. The largest species reached nearly 3 meters, close to 300 kilograms. But size isn't what made it dangerous. The design is what made it dangerous. Start with the legs. At this point in Earth's history, almost every large land animal walked with its limbs splayed out to the sides, like a modern lizard, belly low, swinging wide arcs, exhausting just to watch. You can sprint that way. You cannot sustain it. Gorgonops walked differently. Legs tucked directly beneath the body, weight balanced over the hips, a posture that would not appear in dinosaurs for another 30 million years. This gave it something almost no other predator of its time possessed: endurance. Once an animal can move like this, it doesn't need to wait anymore. It can chase. Now the skull. Those 13-centimeter saber teeth were not for chewing. They were precision instruments, engineered to find the gap between ribs, to punch through to the lung or the vessels at the base of the neck. One strike correctly placed, and the kill was nearly instant. The jaw tells you everything. Gorgonops couldn't open wide, couldn't crack bone like a hyena, but it could drive those teeth through hide and muscle and into a body cavity before the prey understood what was happening. And then there are the eyes, forward-facing, not the wide side-mounted eyes of prey, but forward, overlapping fields of vision, depth perception, the same configuration you see in eagles, in owls, in wolves, in you. Depth perception is the signature of a pursuit predator, an animal that has committed its entire existence to locking on to something and not letting go. And here is something we genuinely don't know, and it should bother you. Did it have whiskers? Did it have patches of proto-fur? Did it care for its young? We can't say for certain. Soft tissue doesn't fossilize. Imagine a predator with a wolf's brain and a lion's drive, wrapped in skin that sits somewhere between scales and fur, the uncanny valley of the fossil record, familiar enough to recognize, wrong enough to unsettle you. It was the first warm-blooded apex predator Earth ever produced. The first saber-toothed killer was not a cat. The first upright hunter was not a dinosaur. The first pursuit predator with depth perception and an endurance body was this. The herd doesn't know it yet, but one of them is already marked. It has been watching for 20 minutes, not targeting the nearest animal, not the largest, the separated one, the one that drifted 6 meters from the edge of the herd and hasn't corrected. It doesn't know it yet, but it's already dead. The forelimbs hit first, pinning. The neck drives the skull down, those teeth punching through, finding the gap between ribs. The momentum of the strike does the work. The jaw doesn't need to clamp. It's over in under 15 seconds. This was the first land animal capable of killing with strategy. Not just strength, not just speed, strategy. It chose its target. It read the herd. It used terrain. For 50 million years, nothing could challenge it. And then something did. Not another predator, something worse. Prey doesn't stand still while predators get better. The dicynodonts grew thicker skulls. Some species developed armor-like hide. They began herding more tightly, positioning their largest members on the outside, a wall of muscle between the predator and the vulnerable. And Gorgonops answered. Longer teeth, stronger forelimbs, sharper senses. Every drought pruned the weak. Every heat wave accelerated selection. The Permian ran a 50 million year arms race between killer and killed, and every generation raised the stakes. Evolution without breaks. But specialization is a trap. The more perfectly an animal is tuned to one world, the more catastrophically it fails when that world changes. Gorgonops had been honed to this ecosystem, this prey, this climate. It had no redundancy, no fallback. Here is what the world looked like before. Full, loud, complex. 50 million years of evolutionary refinement packed into every ecosystem on every continent. The sky held flying reptiles, the rivers ran with fish, the plains thundered with herds that stretched to the horizon. And then, the Siberian Traps. That is the geological name for what happened next, but the name conceals the scale. This was not a volcano. This was a volcanic system the size of modern Europe, erupting continuously for 2 million years. Lava flooding a landmass larger than Australia. CO2 pouring into the atmosphere in volumes that had no precedent in the history of complex life. Global temperatures spiked. The oceans began to acidify. The plankton blooms, the base of the entire marine food web, collapsed. 96% of marine species died. On land, the collapse was bottom up. Plants first, then the herbivores, then the predators. The Permian didn't end with a bang. It ended with a slow suffocation. This is what dominance looks like at the end. It isn't a battle. It isn't a dramatic last stand against a worthy enemy. It's a predator walking through a world that has stopped producing food, searching for something that no longer exists. Gone. Dominance means nothing when the world itself becomes the enemy. Gorgonops didn't know it was living at the end of the world. Neither do we. Here is the part that rewrites everything that comes after. Before the extinction, there was a group of small, entirely unremarkable reptiles called archosaurs. You wouldn't have looked at them twice. Fast, lightweight, opportunistic, background animals, living in the margins of a world owned by synapsids. They had stayed marginal for millions of years because Gorgonops had kept them there. Predator pressure isn't just about killing, it's about suppression. It determines which animals are allowed to grow large, which lineages get to expand, which evolutionary paths remain open, and which get closed. While Gorgonops lived, archosaurs couldn't expand. Every time they diversified, theracid predators pushed back. The ecosystem had a ceiling. Gorgonops was the ceiling. And then the ceiling was gone. Here is why archosaurs survived when Gorgonops didn't. They were small. Small bodies need less food. Small metabolisms run on scraps. But there's something else. Something that gave archosaurs an edge even Gorgonops couldn't have anticipated. They breathed differently. While synapsids used a back-and-forth lung system, archosaurs were developing something more efficient, a one-way airflow through air sacs that extracted oxygen from every breath, both inhaling and exhaling. In a world where CO2 had spiked and oxygen had crashed, this wasn't a minor advantage. Gorgonops had the better weapons. Archosaurs had the better engine. In a suffocating world, the engine is what matters. Gorgonops didn't lose to dinosaurs. Dinosaurs didn't defeat it. They didn't outcompete it, or outfight it, or evolve past it. They simply walked into a vacancy that the great dying had carved open. The age of dinosaurs wasn't a beginning, it was an aftershock. Tyrannosaurus rex, Brachiosaurus, velociraptors, every creature, every ecosystem, every 180 million years of the Mesozoic, only possible because a volcanic eruption on the other side of the planet killed the one lineage that had kept everything else in check. If Gorgonops had survived, dinosaurs might never have ruled at all. Gorgonops vanished, but it didn't disappear. The traits it invented kept coming back. The upright posture? Dinosaurs evolved it independently. Then mammals evolved it independently. Evolution kept arriving at the same answer, because it's the correct answer. Gorgonops proved it first. The saber-tooth strategy? Smilodon evolved it from scratch, 35 million years after Gorgonops died. Different continent, different lineage, same weapon. Because precision killing is so effective that evolution couldn't stop reinventing it. And then there's this. The bones of the Gorgonops jaw, the hinge structure, the cheekbones, over millions of years in the lineage that survived the Great Dying, those bones migrated inward. They shrank, they repositioned themselves deep inside the skull. They became the bones of the mammalian inner ear, the hammer, the anvil, the stirrup. Your ear bones used to be part of a predator's jaw. You are hearing this right now because of something that hunted 260 million years ago. Your jawbone carries the blueprint of a Permian killer. Every step you take on two legs echoes the first upright predator. We didn't come after Gorgonops, we came from it. Here's what I keep returning to. Gorgonops was almost perfectly designed. The right body plan, the right weapons, the right intelligence for its world. It ruled without serious competition for longer than mammals have existed in any form. By every measure of evolutionary success, it won. And none of it mattered. The thing that ended it wasn't a better predator. It wasn't a smarter rival. It wasn't disease or age or some flaw in its own design. It was a crack in the Earth's crust on the other side of the planet, slowly, invisibly, over 2 million years, dismantling the food web that held everything together. Earth doesn't reward strength. It doesn't reward perfection. It rewards flexibility, the ability to survive on less, to function in a world that has stopped cooperating. Gorgonops ruled a world that was about to disappear. When the world changed, it vanished. If you had been alive 260 million years ago, this is what would have been hunting you. For millions of years, everything lived under something like this, watching, waiting, and then it was gone, leaving behind only bones and the world we inherited from its absence.